Start the recording. Okay. Good evening, 443, and welcome to CIS 5620. I hope you guys are doing well. The health experts are saying that cases of COVID are going up in North Carolina, so just be careful. Continue doing what you've been doing. We're also in the voting period, and like I mentioned in the email, if you vote or you help somebody to vote, you get some extra credit, so make sure you do that. It's always good to be engaged and also let your friends and family know that it is very important that we participate in the elections because the people that we put in office make decisions that impact our lives. So I can't tell you who to vote for, but you know what matters in your life. Okay, so that being said, we are making progress for the most part. And if you look at the course documents, this one gives us a breakdown of where we are. I know there were some errors, some mistakes earlier on the dates, but we have tried to fix those. And if there are some, just let me know. So this is going to be a little bit of a busy week because we are hopefully going to be able to cover the concept in chapter 8, I'm sorry. We're in week 9. So chapter 8, that's on the quality management, a very, very important concept, not only in project management, but in daily life. That's why we have an election, because we need to change maybe the quality of our politics, or we need to keep the same things or improve, or wherever you want to look at it. We'll also be working on submitting the first draft of the research paper. So this should not be complete, but at least you'll be able to give me more information to know where you are and which direction you're taking. And usually you can use this as a dry run. So what usually happens is most of the time you're given a project and your professors don't look at it until the end of the semester. And that way you end up getting a grade, and sometimes it can be a good grade or a bad grade. So what you're trying to do is we're trying to make sure that we don't fall into that trap whereby students either rush at the last minute or work on an assignment. So by you giving me a draft, I'm going to make sure that you're doing the right thing, you're following the right step, and then I can give you a feedback, and that way you're going to be able to improve your work. So that's kind of like what we talk about in Agile project management, whereby you work on a piece, you give it the customer looks at it, they agree, and then you can continue working a little bit more. We'll also be taking our exam. So this exam will be available. When is today? Wednesday, Thursday, maybe by tomorrow evening, the exam should be available, and you'll have a few days, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, maybe to do it. So it's going to be covering the chapter since the last exam. So we look at chapter 5, project scope management, project time management, cost management, and quality management. The same format as the previous exam. So it's something that you're familiar with. And then we'll continue down like that until the last week of the semester. So that is where we are. Any questions?
No.
No, sir.
Okay, so some of you have been working on the professional participation events, and this is where you find the link for that. So I did post some events the last couple of days, and some of you took advantage of that. So some of these might have taken, I think there's still one October 30th, so you can attend this event here. And I don't know when this one is taking place. This might have actually happened. And this October 15th, this also happened. Yeah, but the school has a lot of events going on. If you call the dean's office, the School of Business, they have a lot of events going on, so they can provide more information for you. And I said you can also attend an event in your place of work. It doesn't have to be necessarily something that's affiliated with the NCCU. So once you do that, you'll usually download a form. So the forms are right here. You download that form, fill that form, let me know a little bit about what happened in that meeting. If there is somebody who is a supervisor, you can ask them to sign that. Or if you're signing on online for an event, you can use that. This is like a document that you get to verify that you registered for that. You can attach that to your submission and then do the submission down here. You're supposed to participate in 2 events, so make sure you do that. Now, the deadline for submitting this is October 31st, so we have maybe a week and a half to do that. So make sure you do that. You don't have to wait until the last minute. The other assignment that you're supposed to be doing as a group, but now we're doing it as an individual, and some of you have already finished, some of you are working, is the Microsoft hands-on assignment. We were meant to do two, we're only going to do one. So there is this guide here, which is the template, and basically what you do is you just read the document, and then when it asks you to enter some information into Microsoft project, you do that. And at the end, when you finish that, you're going to get some documents and some questions. So upload that. That's part of what you're calling the Microsoft project individual assignment. If you are doing it as a group, that is fine, no problem. But you have to make sure that you submit as an individual. So that is where we are in terms of assignments. Any questions?
No, sir.
No, no, sir.
Okay, so let's get into the content for this week. We're looking at quality management, and we have a few things. We should know what is quality, so the definition of quality, what is Kanban, 7 quality control tools, what is Six Sigma, and what's called the cost of quality. So from the line down here, I have posted the PowerPoint slide. I will go through that in a few minutes. But first of all, I wanted to talk a little bit about these videos here. And these videos, actually, I find them to be more informative. I might be biased. But my suggestion is you can do two things. You can read the book and then come back and watch the videos, or you can watch the videos and then go back and read the book, because the videos kind of summarize. So this is actually a very nice video. They are maybe less than 5 minutes. I don't know how many of you have watched this video. Anybody?
I haven't got a chance to yet.
Okay, so make sure at least you do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm hoping that even the ones from the past, you're doing that. If you're not, at least note where they are. And then when you have time, you'll be able to go back to that. Now, I need to remind you that when you're going to school, that might be one of the most important times when you can actually learn about some concept. Because once you finish school or when you finish this class, you might not have another time to revisit this concept. But something like quality is something that we always encounter in our daily life. So this first video here helps you and explain to you what quality is all about. And they're very, very short videos. This one talks about this concept of what you call the Kanban. You may or may not use this, but basically, the more knowledgeable you are, the more value you have to an organization. Scrum versus Kanban. We have talked about Scrum in the past. Is a technique that you can use to manage your project. And then we have the Kanban, whereby people are using visual workflow. And this comes from the concept where we say a picture is worth 1,000 words. So they help you to be able to say that relationship. Now, another very important video is one on the 7 quality control tools. So if you remember the definition of project management, we said it is the application of what? Knowledge, tools, techniques. Okay, so the tools, the application of knowledge, tools, and techniques. So there is that concept of the tools. So this is an example of some of those tools that you have to use when you're managing your project. Okay, so this video walks you through these 7 different types of tools, and some of them we have seen them. I think we have looked at histogram as a chart, a Pareto chart, a flow chart, some of these. So this is actually generated from, some of them is from statistics, and if you've taken an Excel class, some of them are coming from here. Okay, but these are the tools that you use. Now in the exam, they might ask you which of these, like they give you a group and they ask you which of this is not one of the 7 quality control tools. Or they can give you a picture and they ask you which of this is that. So the advantage of this video is because it walks you through. I don't know whether you can hear it, but okay, so a little bit further, I want to show. So we have those, and yep, so that's an example of talking about. That's the bar graph, so it's one of the tools. And basically what you'll do is, with bar graph is where you're trying to see the relation between the good items or the items that are not good. Then you can use that to help you in improving your quality. So you can have like different categories of defects depending on the size and things like that. And then you can have another tool, check sheet. So we know about this, but you're trying to look like, for instance, an employee, if you're the supervisor and trying to see employees that are late. So somebody is late on Monday, and then they're late on Wednesday, and then you see when you evaluate that data, you find that they're always late on a certain day. So based on that, you can go back and talk to them and find out what is going on. And they might tell you, oh, maybe on that particular day when they are always late, maybe they have somebody who's supposed to be babysitting for them, they don't show up, or maybe there is something that happens in the morning, they have to wait for somebody to come and take care of kids or something. So that check sheet, you can use it to help you with trying to improve quality. Another tool that you can use is the Pareto chart. Okay, so this is a concept that you'll hear what is called the 80-20 rule, which means that 80% of the effects are caused by 20% of 80% of the outcomes are caused by 20% of the effect. So simply stated is when you look at a community and you look at crime and the people who commit the crime, you look at the crime and people who commit the crime, 80% of the crimes in a community are committed by 20% of the population. Okay, so there is a very small segment of the population that does most of the crimes. Okay, so this Pareto chart helps us to be able to see that. So if you're trying to improve the quality, what it does is try to show you where most of the defects are coming from. So we have that concept of what is called the 80-20 rule. We might revisit that in a few minutes when you look at the PowerPoint slides. So that's the Pareto chart. So usually what they'll do is they can give you a picture and they ask you, what is this? So this is a Pareto chart. And basically you combine the bar graph and then the cumulative graph. So it's a bar graph that has two columns. So you have one on this side, which is showing you the values, the raw values, and then you have the cumulative values by the percentages. So just by looking at this, you can see you have 4 items, but what is 8%? 8% of the effects are coming from just these two, the scrap and the chip, are contributing 80%. So that's how you do that, because the first one is 50% and the other one is 30%. When you add both of them, that's 80%. Okay, then you can see 90% are coming from 1, 2, 3. So that's the concept of what you're calling the Pareto chart. And then you can go on to what you call the cause and effect, or the fishbone. Okay, so we have the issues down here and then the effects. So this is the effect, is the method, and then we have the causes. These are the different causes. So for the method, we have the sub cause and then the cause like this. So all these are the causes of this effect. So problem statement, effects, how you can improve that is by through the measurement, machine, method, and on like that. And you can fit this, like if you're trying to see how you can improve your GPA. How to improve your GPA, one is maybe the classes that you're taking. And then what about the classes? You have different classes, then you can see which class maybe you need to devote more time, less time. Maybe your work can be another what? Another effect, and what are the different courses? The hours that you work, the schedule, all the way like that. What about the family? Family can be another effect that might be contributing to your GPA being low or being high. And then you might have what? Friends, and on like that. So this cause and effect can be used to help identify factors that are contributing to the main problem and how you can go ahead and improve that. Then you have to look at a scatter diagram. Okay, so this is from statistics and you're trying to show, like, for instance, the relationship between the weight and the temperature. So this is talking about the correlation. So in statistics, we talk about correlation. Okay? Now you have to understand that correlation is not the same as causation. Two things can be related, but they are not causing each other. And one of the most popular examples that you'll hear being used is that as the population increases in a certain town or geographical location, you tend to see more liquor stores opening, and also you tend to see more churches opening. So the higher the population in a location, the higher the liquor stores and the higher the number of churches. Now those two things are not related, but they're not causing each other. Okay, so there is no relationship between direct relation between the churches and what and the churches. But one of the explanation is that as the population increases, you're going to have some more people who would like to go to the liquor store, and then you'll have some more people who like to go to churches. And that's why the population increases leads to more liquor stores and more churches. So that's the concept of correlation and causation. You gotta be careful about that. Okay, so they go on and on talking about that. Actually, they have that example here, the liquor stores and the churches. Then you have the histogram. Okay, so you have all the different bar charts right here. So you're representing the data using the ranges. Okay, and you might have heard about what's called the bell curve. So that's an example of what you're calling the histogram. And then the last tool is what you call the control chart. So we say there are 7, the control chart. So this is usually used in manufacturing, or even sometimes even in sports, they use this one, control chart. So what you do is you have a process and you take some data at certain points and you want to make sure that that process stays within this range. So this is the lower range, this is the upper range. And it's the same thing, like on the highway. That's what the police do. So they set their gun and they set it at a certain range. If you're moving too slow, they are going to notice that. If you're moving too fast, they are going to notice that. They want to make sure that everybody is staying within the speed limit. So they might have like 65, which means 65 is posted speed limit, and then you can do what? Maybe 55, and maybe you can do 75. Anything about that is out of control and need to be taken care of. Anything below that, there is a problem, need to be taken care of. So that's what you call a control chart. It is very, very popular in manufacturing. That's why if you go to a grocery store and next time you like if you at an aisle that has like bottle of drinks and you have like a magnifying glass and you try to look at the level of the drinks, they're not usually going to be all of them at the same level. Okay, they are usually going to be, so there is an agreed upon level at which they have to be. Okay, so there is the upper limit and the lower limit, and as long as they are falling in between there, they are going to be the same way. If you go to a store and you have a weighing machine and you weigh the weight of the bread, although it says 500 milligrams, they might not all of them be the same. They might be like 495 or maybe 502. As long as so they have, as long as there's 500, they can be a little bit maybe 52 or 497, and as long as they are within that range, that is okay. Now, if it is like 480, then it might be out of the range, and that needs to be taken out of production. Are we together?
Yes.
Okay, so those are the 7 control tools, so you can watch that. And then this actually walks you through how to create a Pareto chart, because you might be required maybe down the road to create one, and it's very, very easy. You have your data, you sort the data, and then you create the cumulative values, convert them to percentages, and then you plot your graph, and boom, out you go. Now, it's important at least to know about this because you might be in the group and you come up with this idea. Maybe if we create a Pareto chart, we can help to present our data much more. So that's some of the techniques that you can use to add value to your group. And anytime that you're working and you're adding value to your group, it means you become more important. You become less indispensable. But if you're not adding any value to a group, when the time comes for people to be laid off or let go, they might just see you as the easy target. Another concept is what you call the Six Sigma. Okay, and this is also another concept for ensuring that we have quality control. Okay, so this comes from statistics. Sigma is standard deviation. And what you do is you set up a value within which you expect your products to be. Okay, so Six Sigma comes up the same thing like you have a bell curve. So you have some items that are too out, and then you have some other items that are too big, and you want them to be in the same range. So you can use that. So this video here will actually walk you through that concept of what is Six Sigma and how you're going to be able to do that. So watch a little bit of that. And then this is the cost of poor quality. So what can happen if you don't have quality in your organization? Okay, if you're not hiring good employees, if you're not producing good items, what will happen? We have seen a lot of that. Anytime that you see a recall, that means that the product is not good. Something is wrong with it. The video walks you through some of the examples of companies that have incurred huge losses because of poor quality of their product. Remember also, if we are not producing very good students here, they can get good jobs out there. If they can get good jobs, they can give back to the university, and we can offer more scholarships. We can name buildings after them that can give us money. So it becomes a vicious cycle. So quality is very, very, very important. So that's a little bit about that. Okay? So we have different cost, prevention cost. That's the one that you do to ensure that you're planning and you're executing your project in the right way. And then you have what you're calling the appraisal cost, cost of evaluating the process and the outputs to ensure the quality. Internal failure costs, those are costs that you incur after identifying a defect before the customer receives it. So there are sometimes that you can actually correct some issues before they get out of hand of the organization. Okay, and then testing equipment, some companies do that. They do a lot of testing. That's actually what is happening now with the medicine. That's what they have to go through, like the different trials. All what they're doing is quality. They're trying to make sure that this medicine treats what we intend it to be treating. That's what they have to go through level 1, level 2, and then level 3 before they put it out there in the market. Because it will be very detrimental when they put up a medicine and then they find out that medicine is actually causing some what? Unexplained illnesses, or people are taking that medicine and falling ill. The cost of doing that will be very high. So that's part of ensuring quality. So these are some of the videos that we have posted, and they give you some of the insights. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so let's briefly go through some of the slides. We shouldn't be taking long, and see what we got here. Okay, so it says 67 slides. I'm not going through 67 slides. I'll just mention a few concepts here and there, what I think is very important, and then we will move on. Okay, so we're familiar with that. I don't know whether you have heard about the sudden blue screen of death. I think that used to be very popular with Microsoft. The blue screen of death. So in the earlier days when Microsoft did not have very good software, they used to have computers that were doing a lot of crashing, and they'll give you this screen, blue screen. And then your computer will be dead, and then you have to reboot. So some of you might be familiar with that. Also, very many people will tell you some of the foreign cars, some people say they are better quality than the American cars. They have a higher resale value and things like that. So there's actually some truth to that, because as you read the information about the quality, most of the quality ideas originated in the US, but they were applied in Japan. So in terms of their manufacturing, Japan has been kind of like in the forefront, and some of their cars are actually very well designed because they follow these very strict quality products. So America, some of the cars, what they do is they want to produce them quick, so they might sometimes not have a high resale value. So you might have heard about names about like what Ford means. You know, some people, I read somewhere, I say like found on the road dead or something like that. So that's jokes that we're talking about with the cars. Okay, so sometimes with the sudden screen blue, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get the right wording for this. The blue screen of death. So when that used to happen, people just reboot their computers, and they were okay with that. Okay? Now, in IT, quality is very, very important, because what usually happens is if you, for instance, write a computer program, and that computer program is doing a mathematical computation but is making an error of maybe 10 cents, and then you have 1,000,000 people, that can be a lot of money. So you want to make sure that if you're writing computer programs, you're working on IT projects, quality is of utmost importance. So that's why we talk about that quality up there. So let's see what we have there. Okay, so they have actually a case here of some patients who died because of receiving some wrong medication. So we need to ensure that we're doing the right quality. Also, we have a software that has a bug. So in one of the biggest software errors in banking history, Chemical Bank mistakenly deducted about 15 million from more than 100,000 customers account. Okay, so just $1, it can mean a lot. Okay, and then unsealing some documents that have on the internet that can also lead to a lot of problems. So quality and is explained in some of those videos. Simply stated is the degree to which a set of inherent characteristics fulfills the requirement. So what you say is this is good quality. What does it mean? Because you have some expectation of what that product should be doing. If it meets those requirements, then you have quality in there. Okay. So you can also talk about the conformance to what? Requirements. The project's processes and products meet the written specification. So you want a pen. The pen is able to write. In that case, that is good quality. Okay. All fitness for what? For use. A product can be used as it was intended. If you have a car, you want to be able to move from point A to point B, and it does that, that's good enough. Now, some people want more in a car. Okay, they want heated seats. So in that case, if they have a car that does not have that, it might not meet that quality requirement. So quality is either conformant to the requirement or fitness for use, and sometimes the quality is going to be based on the user. Okay, so in terms of the project quality management, we have to go through all these planning processes, performing quality assurance, quality control, and this is in conformance with the project management body of knowledge. So this is for the ones who are going to be taking the class, because you need to know if you need to know about what's happening in the planning, so you plan the quality management. And we have seen this planning either in the cost or even in schedule or time, in the scope. We'll be looking at it also in human resources, in stakeholders management, the same way. So there's always going to be a plan. So human resource management plan, stakeholders management plan. We saw that schedule management plan. Now you're looking at the quality management plan. Okay. And then you have during the execution, what do? You perform the quality assurance. So you're doing those things that ensure that your product or your project is meeting the requirements, that is the scope, the intended requirements. So if there isn't going to be any changes, you have the change request, and then you're looking at the project management plan updates, documents updates. So this is going to be kind of like repeated for most of the knowledge areas. When you look at the cost, you look at the schedule, you look at the quality, you look at the stakeholders, you're going to be seeing a lot of this output being the same. And then in the monitoring, you're monitoring quality control. So this is a little bit different. This is going to be different for each knowledge area. Quality control measurements, how do you measure quality in your organization and how do you control that? So this is now where those tools that we talked about come into place, because you can be using those tools. Some companies use one or combination of those tools. Okay, and then you also make sure that you validate the changes. The deliverable, the same thing, and then you have work performance information. This might be repeated for most of the knowledge areas. Same thing with change requests. Managing the products is going to be repeated. Document updates are going to be repeated, and these organizational process assets are going to be repeated. So there are some that are documents that are going to be the same from one knowledge area to the next one. So that's that part of that. And then you're looking at how do you plan the quality. So planning qualities implies the ability to anticipate situations and prepare actions to bring about the desired outcome. So important to prevent the defects by selecting the proper materials. So if you're in manufacturing, like for instance, for those companies that make potato chips, one of the ways that they can improve their quality is by making sure that their raw materials is good, is of high quality, because that way you're going to have less defects. Okay? That's another reason why before you are admitted to a program, the MBA or even undergraduate, they need to make sure that you meet some certain requirements. That's another way that you can improve the quality. Okay, I'm not saying that human beings are defects, but you make sure, like for instance, if you have GMAT, people have a certain score that they have to get before they are admitted, because that shows that they are capable of pursuing that level of education. Okay, so that's part of selecting the raw materials. Training and indoctrinating people in quality. So in the organization, you have to make sure that everybody knows about quality. There is a concept of what is called TQM, total quality management. That means it is everybody's responsibility to ensure quality. So if at Central, we're trying to educate students who can be who can make changes in the world, change their lives, change the lives of their loved ones, and be of impact to the world. We have to make sure that everybody understands that, from the person who is doing the janitorial work, the people in the cafeteria, the bus driver, to the professors, to the chancellor. Everybody has to know what is it that you're trying to do, okay? And what does it take to produce good students? So that's what we mean by training and indoctrinating people in quality. Planning a process that ensures the appropriate outcome. The same way, when we admit you here, we have to make sure that we give you the right education. We also provide you with just more than education, more than academia. The same concept applies to the organizations. They have to make sure that their processes are meeting high standards and they're going to ensure quality in the organization. Okay, functionality. So these are some of the aspects of IT project. We won't go into all of that, but for instance, something like performance addresses how well a product or service performs the customer's intended use. So most of you probably have bought a TV, and when you go home with your TV, there's some things that you want that TV to be able to do. That means it is meeting those performance requirements. Okay, the same thing with features. So the system special characteristics that appeal to what? To users. Like I said, some people want heated seat in their car. Some people don't care about all that. All what they want is maybe what? Rims on their car. Okay. Some people might want maybe a very beautiful dashboard. Some people want to have what? Hatchback, maybe two-door, things like that. Then in terms of reliability, okay, the product is going to be reliable and then also easy to maintain. Okay, easy to perform maintenance on a product. Some people want to make sure that the product can be maintained easily. So these are some of the scope when you're working at IT project. So who is responsible for quality? So project managers are ultimately responsible for quality management on their project, but also everybody else should be involved in that. So we have some of the organizations, and if you go through them and Google project management and quality, they'll give you some more information about what quality is all about. So revisit that at your own time. So performing quality assurance, remember we say this is part of quality assurance, okay? So performing quality measurements, okay? So that's part of performing the quality. So how do you go about doing that? So we can use quality assurance, and then we can use this concept of what's called the Kaizen, a Japanese word for improvement or change for the better. So this is whereby if you take a class one semester and you get a B, you say next semester I'm going to work so hard, I'm going to get an A. And then when you get an A, you say, okay, I'm going to get an A next semester, but it's going to be even an A with a higher percentage. And then I'm going to even learn some more. So that is the concept, the Kaizen. You're trying to improve, making improvement all the time. Lean involves evaluating the process to maximize customer value while minimizing waste. So lean is another concept. And basically what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that if you're producing something, you're using less waste. Because remember, if you have a lot of waste, that also is going to cost you. Okay, so you do that. And then you have benchmarking is another concept that you can use. So we have the word benchmark, and then you have seen this benchmark. So benchmarking is whereby usually you look at what other people in the industry are doing, and then you try to stay close to those specifications. And then quality audit, this comes from the word audit. We are familiar with what auditing is all about. So we're saying it's a structured review of specific quality management activities that help identify the lessons learned that could improve performance on current or future projects. So the same way audit happens in the organization, they come and they take a sample and they look at that finances and they make sure that if everything is good in that sample, they assume everything is good for the whole organization. You can do the same thing for production. So if you are producing potato chips, what usually they do is they do some sample. And then from that sampling, based on the results, they say the process is okay, we can continue. If not, then they need to go back and improve on the productivity. So that's how you can do that. Now, we mentioned about the concept of Kanban. The video actually gives you more information about that, so I won't go through that. And then controlling the quality, acceptable decisions. So with quality, when you look at a product, you can either accept that product or you can say it's not meeting the quality and it needs to be what? Work needs to be done, or you can actually improve the process, because it might actually be the machines that are not working properly. That's why the products are not meeting the specification. So you can adjust that process. Now, for some of the companies, if they're not meeting the sales goal, what they do is they improve the process, and that can mean what? Changing the employees, firing the employees, hiring new employees, and things like that. So that is that. And then we are saying there are some tools that we can use to help us in doing that. And these are the 7 basic tools. So cause and effect, also called the fishbone or the Ishikawa. Okay, and then talks about that. So we went through that. You can see an example here. So problem for the user cannot get in the system, and then you try to find out. So this, you have an IT department, and they're saying the users cannot get in the system. People are not able to log in. So they're trying to solve that problem. So they say it might be either a system hardware issue, or it might be the training, or it might be the software, or it might be what? The user's hardware. And then they try to identify if it's the user's hardware, what's going on. Maybe their processor is too slow. Maybe there's not enough hard disk. Maybe there's not enough memory. Okay. So when people usually call you with a problem, this is some of the techniques that you actually use to help them solve the problem. You ask them what's going on with your system. Okay. And somebody tells you, I cannot download files on the internet. And tell them, can you go to your modem? What is on your modem? Which color is it? So because you already have an idea, so they have already mapped something like this, and they can help you identify and pinpoint the problem. Any questions?
No, sir.
Okay, so that's where we are. Okay, control chart, we mentioned about that, so I want to go back through that. The 7 run rule states that if 7 data points in a row are all below the mean, above the mean, or all increasing or decreasing, then the process needs to be examined for non-random problems. So basically what they're saying is, remember we talked about the control charts? So this is what you have set up. You have set up to be the mean. Now, anything that is in this range is going to be okay. But if you have items that this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, what you want is you want the item to be moving randomly. 1 up, 1 down, 1 up, 1 down, maybe 2, maybe 3. When you have 7, it means there is a problem. And that's what this statement here talks about, the 7 run rule. So in this case, we start from counting and we have 1. So this is the first one below the line here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So when you see that, the system should stop, and then you have to go check and see what's going on, because that might be, it means there is an issue that needs to be corrected. So that is usually what's called the 7 run rule. They can either be on one side, the same thing here, you see we have a problem there, another one here, we have a problem, but here is 1, 2, 3, 4, and then it goes back, that's okay. 1, 2, because these are called random variations. They are random variations, but if it's more than 7 on one side, then there is a problem. Okay, so that's the control. This is actually statistics, and most of the companies use this to help control the quality of the products. Okay, so the same thing, like if you're in customer service, they probably tell you should be the customer for maybe 5 minutes, 10 minutes, or 15 minutes, and they look at your logs. So if they see that you're spending a lot of time with your customers, they might ask you a question, what's going on? They might want to find out, how come you're spending so much time with your customers? Okay, because either they are sending you a very difficult problem, or maybe you're just not able to solve the issues, or something like that. Or maybe you're taking them around the corner because you don't want to get more calls, and on like that. The same thing, if you're not picking the calls, they can use that. Okay? Because they see you take a long time before you pick a call. So they want to find out why is that delay. And now everything, most of the things are automated. So the system can be set and you can be able to report on that very, very easily. Okay, so check sheet. We mentioned about the check sheet. So this is like the complaints that customers or somebody is getting. So we look at the complaints and you see they are coming from email, text, phone call, and then you can look at these totals here and you can see which day do we have a lot of complaints. It's Monday and Tuesday. So why is it that we have a lot of complaints on Monday and Tuesday? Okay, now you can start to use another chart, maybe like this, try and identify. So you have Monday and Tuesday is when you have a lot of calls. So you have Monday here and then you have Tuesday. What happens on Monday? Maybe people are coming from the weekend, might have forgotten their login information. Okay, Maybe they had something that happened over the weekend and on like that. So you're going to be able to identify those issues, but you cannot identify the issues unless you have data that is helping you and you're able to analyze that data. So that is part of that scatter diagram. We have that. So it shows the relationship on a time series. So you have the age of the respondent and the user satisfaction ratings, and that can tell you number 3, and you can see the age group and on like that. So scatter diagram is used for showing the relationship between two variables. So in this case, we have age of the respondent and the user satisfaction ratings. Okay. Histogram, a bar graph of a distribution of variables. So you have your variables here. So, and each bar represents the value of each. So week 1, we had maybe 78, week 2, and just by looking at this, a picture is worth 1,000 words. You can see the week that we had a lot of complaints. Okay, so that was week 2, followed by week 5, and then like so. What you do is now you go back and find what happened in week 2. Okay, maybe that's the time there was a storm. That's why we had very many companies, clients, customers complaining about the quality of their either internet or phone or something like that. Maybe that's the day our employees went on strike. Okay? Maybe that's why many customers are not able to do what? To access their resources and on like that. So these are all techniques that you can use to help you identify where the problems are. Okay? And then we have the Pareto chart. Okay, uses what is called the Pareto analysis, and you're saying it's so-called the 80-20 rule, meaning that 80% of the problems are due to the 20% of the causes. Okay, so what you do is you look at the problems, and then you have to look at this. So you're not going to be looking at everybody or every other variable. You just concentrate on the 20%. Okay, so you look at a neighborhood, and you're trying to minimize maybe crime. You can concentrate on certain neighborhoods, and that will be able to probably help. The same thing, if you are trying to minimize speeding on the highway, it's not everybody who speeds. There is usually a group of people. If you find somebody who has 2, 3, 4 speeding tickets, they do that all the time. Okay, and some of it is just they don't know about it, or maybe they like to drive fast or something like that. So you can go ahead and analyze that. So that's an example of what we are looking at that, and you can see for this company, they see that most of 80%, yeah, close to 80% of their problems are coming in from login problems and system lockup. Okay, so usually what will happen is what? When you log on more than 3 times, the system will lock you down. So if you're trying to find out what's going on with the system, you can concentrate on these 2 items. So this is 80% of the problems are because of 20% or two causes in this case. Are we together?
Yes.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we should be finishing in a few minutes. Okay, flowcharts, graphical display of the logical and flow of processes. So this is also helping you to be able to see when you're trying to improve like a business process, some companies will use the flowcharts because it shows how the information is structured in the organization. So that's an example of a flowchart, deliverable, acceptable request, readouts, and on like that. You don't have to be developing flowchart in this class, but most of the companies actually use flowcharts. So that is that. And then we have the run chart. So display the history and pattern of variation of a process over time. So here we're trying to compare different items, and it's a chart. So what we have is we have defects number 1, defect number 2, defect number 3, and you can see the relationship. So you might be able to see, like, when we head towards the December, you can see the defects. This is defect number 1 increases from July all the way like that. So if you're going to be trying to find out the problem, you can see here it's very, very clearly. And then with defect number 2 from July, there's not much that's going on. Okay, so basically what you're doing is a run. See the run? Because it's time series. This is time down here, and then we have the values over here. So it helps you to be able to compare different components. Okay. Okay, statistical sampling, we wouldn't go into all the details about this, but basically what we are saying here is, like now they are doing the polling, And they're saying Joe Biden is leading in North Carolina by maybe 4 percentage points, and on like that. So what we are saying is that usually probably nobody has ever polled you, right? Anybody who has been polled here? Like anybody asking who you're going to vote for?
No.
Okay, but they have those numbers that they're presenting. And usually what happens is if you look down, they'll tell you how many people are polled. So the way they do this is if we can maybe see if we can open this really quick, new window, and go to what happened to the page that I opened? No, we can actually open, minimize this screen. Okay, we have one here, and one of the popular polling companies, what? Queen, yeah, Quinnipiac poll. Let's see that Quinnipiac University. Okay, so 15 July, 20 September, national polls. Okay, so they have this for Texas. So they're saying October 21st, Pennsylvania and Texas likely poll result. So Texas, Biden 47, Trump 47%. Okay, so Biden is 51% in Pennsylvania and Trump is 43%. For senator, this guy is that and that and that. So how do they do this? So usually what you do is when you scroll at the bottom, they'll tell you how they were able to come up with these values over here. So let's see, go down, go down, go down, go down. Okay, right here. So the results here, they're saying from October 16th to 19th, they surveyed 12.1 likely voters in Pennsylvania, and the margin of error is plus or minus 2.8 percentage points. Okay, so out of these people who were able to come up with that information, in Texas they did 1145 with this margin of error. Okay, so what do we mean? Why is that important for us to look at that? Because we are looking at what we call the statistical sampling. So this is the technique that they use to help in choosing a part of a population for inspection, because that is also how you control quality. Because if you are producing like iPhones, they don't have to look at each and every iPhone to find if their iPhone are meeting the quality. So what you do is you pick a sample, and then from that sample you analyze, and if you see that that sample meets the quality standards, then you assume that the whole batch in that population group is okay. So everything that has been produced is what you're calling population, and then you pick a segment of that population. That's what you're calling the sample. Okay. Now, how do you determine the sample size? There is a technique that you can use to help you determining the sample size. We have what you're calling the certainty factor. So that's why they say something like you want to make sure that the data that you're getting in can have at least a certain amount of error, and that error is going to be what? Acceptable. So in our result, talked about something about the margin of error. See that margin of error somewhere over here? Where was that? Okay, is either plus or minus 2 percentage points. That's the margin of error. Okay, so it means that these percentage values here, this is 47, assuming it was 3%. So the actual value can actually be 50, that this guy has 50%, and this guy has 43%, or this guy has 50%, and this guy has 44%. So plus or minus 3 on either way. Okay, so that's what you mean by the margin of error. So you have to specify that when you're determining your sample size. So if you're the project manager and you're not very good with statistics, then what you might want to do is consult somebody who is good in statistics. And like I said, the project manager does not need to be an expert. You can have somebody who can help you with that. So remember, we talk about the certainty factor here. So the sample size is going to be determined by this value, 0.25 times the certainty factor and divided by acceptance error, and then that value squared. So they give you some of the factors here. So if you want 5% is 95%, so you have a margin of error is 5%. You use this certainty factor. If you want to have 10%, so what you're saying is you are at least 90% sure. Okay, then you use this percentage point over here. So what you do is in this equation here, you have 0.25 times certainty factor, and then you have acceptance error. So 0.05 for 95%. And then you square that, and that will give you the sample size. So that's how they end up with that sample size. So you're not going to see any of those polls, and I want you to do that when we finish the class or even tomorrow. Anytime that you read about a poll, go and see how many people are polled. You're not going to find more than 2,000 people being polled. So even if we came back here and is it Pew Research? They also do a lot of, I think they do a lot of polling. Pew poll, the Trident presidential polling, and let's see how many they poll here. Okay, usually at the bottom, and yeah, this is actually more detailed than the one we looked at. So I'm trying to see whether they show that. Sure, they should be showing it somewhere. How many people they polled? Okay, I don't see it somewhere. Anyway, but when you have some time, read about this item, and somewhere you should be able to see how many people they polled and the margin of error. Okay.
Well, when in 2016, when he ran the first time,
yes,
his supporters said they intentionally gave the wrong information. So I don't know how accurate that's going to be. A large margin of error if people aren't answering truthfully, because because they said that when people asked who they were supporting, they intentionally told them that they were supporting Hillary, or they said that they were undecided, and they knew all along that they were going to vote for Trump.
Yep, that's very, very true. Because remember, this is data and is as good as the people who give you the data. Yep. So that's very, very true. This is sampling, and if people say they're going to vote for this candidate, when they get the booth, they change their mind. That's what happened last time. Yep. And it might happen this time around, but most of the time, you will just wait and see. Yeah. But the last one was a little bit more interesting. So we'll see what happens with this one. Okay, so they show you like the methodology of how they do their sampling, a little bit of this. This is actually a very lucrative field now, because even companies do this. They poll their employees, they poll their customers to see how their products are doing. And although sometimes we don't even know, when you ask for a review, that's a way of polling you, because they're trying to see how they're using their products. Yeah, but data is as good as the source where you're getting the data from. So that's what we have that. And then we mentioned the concept of the Six Sigma is actually very, very popular also. So this is comprehensive, and basically what you're trying to do is you're looking at this concept whereby you're trying to have like 3.4 defects per million opportunities. So what we say is if you have a million items, you're trying to make sure that you have less than 3.4 defects. So this is usually more in manufacturing. It's the same thing, even in school, you're trying to make sure that most of your students are not failing. So you might have heard about what's called the bell curve. Have you heard about that? Ever heard of the bell curve?
No, I haven't.
There is actually a book that's called the bell curve, which is a very controversial book. So it's a very thick book, and if you have some time, I'll ask you to read it. So the bell curve, intelligence and class structure in American life. Yeah, let's call it controversial, because this book, so you see this bell curve here? So you can think of intelligence. This line here represents intelligence, and they have low intelligence, mid-low intelligence, and high intelligence. So what they try to argue in this book is that black people are around here, and then the white people are around here. Okay, and then you have other groups that are around here. So they try to argue that intelligence is genetic. Okay, so there's that concept of nature and nurture. You might have heard about that. So nature is genetic, nurture is where you're born. There's a lot of research that has shown that intelligence is actually not genetic. That's why you find like Richard, Richard Braxton and Bill Gates and all those guys who are very good, their kids don't always necessarily end up being like that. Michael Jordan, one of the best basketball players, his kids are not as good as he is. Okay, so that is because of nurture. So this is a very interesting book. So when you have some time, read it. It's usually a very, very, very long book. And they actually tell you when you get in the middle that if you're reading this book and you've come this far, there's something special in you. Anyhow, so that's the concept of the Six Sigma. So with the Six Sigma, we have that bell curve concept. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to make sure that you minimize the defects that you have. So most of your items should be falling in the middle right here. Okay? You don't want to have things that are out of range, like too heavy if it's bread, too heavy, or too light. You want to make sure that your items, most of them are in this range. That's the concept of the Six Sigma. Okay, so they have this concept that also was very much used in Japan. When you define, you measure, you analyze, like that, define, measure, analyze, and then you improve, and then you control the process. So this is usually for manufacturing, but you can also use it for projects that you're working on. Okay, so you can use Six Sigma like that in project management. And I think we'll stop there for today unless there's any question.
I don't have any questions.
Okay, so we're gonna stop there, and that's where we stop. Okay, I'm gonna stop recording this.